Am I even in focus?
No, it's fine.
Hello, people.
Hello.
All right, Scott, you're up.
Huh?
I'm just kidding. Welcome to our post-Ignite community stand-up. What did we shipped 4.4.0 on Monday, September 25th. That was the first Monday of Ignite. Some pretty cool features there that we'll talk about. And then we're also, Mark, you're like clicking a button today, aren't you, to ship 4.4.1 with a few more features. Correct. So we're going to talk about some of those changes that have come up. We'll talk about a few other things, and then we will talk about the future stuff. We have a few new people in the room. I think Sergey, you were in you came to the last one, right? Maybe. Okay. We've got Sergey. He's helping us with experiments. Sergey, who are you?
I'm just a software engineer.
Okay, and then we also have a new.
He's a dude who can code. That's
a dude who can code. And then we also have a new team member, Maddie. Maddie, tell us about yourself.
I just graduated from college, joined the team about a month and a half ago.
Awesome. And now you're already YouTube famous. Having been on this this video, this community stand-up. Okay, Cormac is going to start out and talk about some of the new features we've had on a few service teams. So Cormac, what are some of the things that went in for the Ignite release from service teams?
Yep, so from service team point of view, we had a couple new modules added. We've got Data Factory v2, which is an extension of the existing Data Factory commandlets. So you can find, so there's Azure RM.Data Factories, and now there's Azure RM.Data Factory v2, so you can look for the new commandlets there. We've got a new service, another new service, Event Grid, which I believe there was a couple talks about that at Ignite.
Yeah.
Corey Sanders has a video on that, detailing that. Really cool service. That's Azure RM.EventGrid. And any of the new commandlets in those modules have the prefix Azure RM and then that service. So if you're looking for the Event Grid commandlets, you'll do Azure RM Event Grid, and you can just tab through all the stuff there. Look for the help for those. And for Data Factory, it's Data Factory v2. So it's pretty easy to find based on the module names. And then we also had a big feature, availability zones go in for a couple of compute and network commandlets. So you can look at the release notes, which are on the changelog, on PowerShell Gallery, or Azure RM, and the corresponding modules that you'd find them in. You'll find all the release notes there, information about each of these modules, information about the other work that we had go into this release. So check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Cormac. We also made some changes to the core product. Wait, do we have anything that Scott gets to talk about?
Feedback, man. You just figured that out now, or usage.
Oh, there we go. Usage.
Yep.
Okay, that was. I thought we had something, but I couldn't find anything, and so I was gonna see if you wanted to do like an impromptu persistence demo. So we just added context persistence. Mark, what is context persistence?
Well, Aaron, I'm glad you asked me that question. So it's really kind of two things. One is that now you can opt in so that PowerShell will remember who you are and the last subscription you were using in between invocations. So basically, you can open up a new shell and not have to do Azure RM account at the beginning if you're always using the same subscription. So that's one big thing. The other big thing is that it allows you to, because there is a persisted context, if you're persisting the context, it allows you to use start job with the commandlets, and so you can run the commandlets asynchronously in a job. So there's things like creating VMs, deploying resource templates, starting and stopping VMs, all those things that take a lot of time and normally would just take up your PowerShell window. Now you can do them in the background process and check on them later. So, and there's some other things there, like we allow you to save multiple contexts and switch back and forth between them. So if you have subscriptions, 2 different subscriptions for 2 different purposes, like one for work and one for home, or one for client 1 and one for client 2, you can switch back and forth between them with simple names. This stuff, there's a new article on docs.microsoft.com that goes through how to use the new feature. Aaron, you might want to share that link.
I will.
When we push out, but basically, if you go to docs.microsoft.com and go to Azure and then PowerShell, and then go under the login part, there's a whole thing about using persistence, and it goes into how you can use the jobs and the new commandlets that we have around this stuff, and the new parameters that we added to enable it. So people who use Azure Automation will also be excited about this, because you can pass in your credentials to commandlets that you're running, which means that you can also use jobs inside Azure Automation, which is nice for people who are using that. So
awesome. And I actually,
I can just real briefly, if we have time, I can
yeah,
show
go for it.
kind of what this looks like.
I didn't know if you had anything prepared.
I don't have anything prepared, but I could just kind of show what this is.
Cowboy.
So bear with me.
Hello.
I've not had the best idea with screen share. So are you seeing my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically right now, I have context persistence turned on. So I can just run, say, get Azure RM subscription without having to log in. I'm just opening a new window, and it'll return all of my subscriptions. So and I can just get resource group. Yeah, it would help if I could spell. So I could just get the resource groups for this thing. And if I open a new window, I'm in the same context. So I can close this window, open a new window, run that command again, and everything's cool. You can see that I'm still logged in. The other cool thing that I can do with this, I can just, if I want to do that in a job, I can just say start job -name list resources. Source would help if we could actually see what I was typing, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's not helpful.
Oh, guys, He-Man's here, so he can do the Cloud Shell one. I have it all prepared, but I bet he could do it better.
And you can see that. And then you can use the standard PowerShell job stuff with this. So for example, I can just do receive job, because I know this actually didn't take very long. And that will just be like the normal execution had happened. So, yay! That's a really long list of stuff. So anyway, there's that. And the other kind of nuance around this is that if I wanted to get if I wanted to actually start a job that's using a different subscription than the one that I'm currently using, I can do this little bit of, I can basically pass in the context for another context this way. So I can use the argument list, and I can use the result of get Azure RM context. And that's too bad. One more, there we go. Let's see, I'll tab through, let's use a different context. Let's use, this one. You can name these contexts nice names. By default, they're going to give your user account, your subscription ID. And so then I'm basically I've basically just done the same thing. And again, this doesn't take very long. And trust me, this is as you can see, actually, this is a totally different subscription. It's the one starts with C, one starts with the other thing. So there you go. So that's what this is about. Again, docs.microsoft.com has great documentation on this. We'd like to hear your feedback on how this is working out for you. So please use send feedback.
Awesome. Which we will talk about even more later. Okay, cool. Looks like I'm up next. He-Man, are you there? We've got our friend from the PowerShell core team who owns the Cloud Shell.
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. And just
In just a sec, I'll show that.
awesome.
Yes,
Cool.
give me 1 minute. I need to.
That's
I'll
no problem.
I'll interrupt you when I'm ready.
Okay,
Nice.
that sounds good. Cool. So as we've talked about in the past, we've been working on some experiments. I think in one of the past ones, we showed some of the designs we were doing. I showed some of the feedback that I got from all of you. And since then, we've actually developed some of the experiments, and we had them ready to go for Ignite. Corey actually showed that in his talk at Ignite. Cormac and I were at Ignite, and we both talked about some of the experiments that we've been running. I will post a link to that talk as well. We're kind of covering some of that here, but I'll post a link to that talk. And so Sergey is currently developing the experiments. I think I have a slightly old version, but Sergey, what have you been working on?
So experiments, like you probably already know, that it's trying to simplify life of our customers of Azure PowerShell. So for example, when you see this, mostly I was working on virtual machine, new command, new Azure, new Oz VM, and if you compare like what is actually in MSDN currently, like how you actually create VM using Azure PowerShell and how you actually can create this VM using experimental command. So it's just like one line. So we try to figure out like what default parameters should be, what the user experience should be like, what they would expect from this command. This is the problem.
Yeah.
So the idea is to make one command that after you're done running the command, you have a usable VM that's presumably the VM that you wanted to create with all of the resources that are necessary in order to make that VM usable. So being attached to the network, having the right ports open, having the right NSG, having the right size disk, all of that stuff happens for you without you having to do all of those things automatically.
Yep,
and
I
we're
will
working on the right balance with this commandlet to make sure that you have the options to change things that you want to about the VM, but that things that should be obviously inferred from the other choices that you made, we infer inside the commandlet. So that's kind of the idea. Strike the balance between ease of use and not cut down on the amount of power that you have to actually control what you can create in the VM.
But not too smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So I can actually.
Aaron, I'm ready
sorry.
to interrupt you now.
Okay, cool. We're almost ready then. I'm just gonna show the experimental commandlet real quick.
Sure.
So you can actually, I didn't show this, but because I already installed it, you can install it with install module, Azure rm.compute.experiments. I've already done that, so we don't need to do that. And because these are experiments, we've kind of named them slightly different to keep them separated from the stable commandlets. So it's new AZVM. And as Mark and Sergey were talking about, everything, almost everything except for name is optional. And like we said, we're looking to get feedback here. So one of the cool things is that we can actually run a job using the context persistence like Mark just talked about. So I can actually new AZVM here, pass a name, just call it like some random numbers. And then maybe I want to change the size, so I'll do a standard. What do we want? Like a DS2? How's that? V2?
Completion works on use?
I don't know if he has the latest version. So a lot of these are, as much as possible, we have tab completion over the parameters where it's a.
Oh,
or we can
I do not have the latest. I don't have 2.9. This is 2.5. It's 2.5. So like Mark said, yeah, we are also adding completion over some of these enumerated properties. And then one of the things that Sergey did is we took that context persistence and the ability to pipe your context down into another job and put it as part of the commandlet right here in as job. So I can kick this off, it'll ask me for my credentials. So I'll put in some credentials for the Windows machine that I'm creating. In just a second, the initial steps will get completed and we can check out that job. So now I can get job, and since I only have one job, I could just get job like that. That would work as well. And like Mark said, I can also receive job on the job. And you want to be a little bit careful if you're actually trying to get the result of the commandlet. At this point, we will just see, oh, so look at that.
Look at that.
The job, we can see that the job failed because I hadn't logged in yet. So in the future, I'll have to log in first.
And on receive job, you do have a dash
Yeah,
keep.
so that's a known error that we're trying to fix. there.
So
Okay.
on receive
Hey,
job, you have
He-Man
dash.
is teaching us something.
Yeah, on receive job, you have dash keep, which essentially keeps the streams that you have retrieved in memory rather than throw them away. So
So if you keep doing receive job keep, it'll just keep on getting bigger and bigger.
yes, it'll save that in memory, but if you don't do a keep, it'll retrieve, show it to you, and it's gone.
All that's trashed. Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome. I did
And
not
on
know
the
that.
job object, you have streams directly, so you can look at the job object itself, but receive job, and you
Ooh.
can even do wait job. So if you said,
Yes.
I'm done whatever I was doing, I want this VM creation to be completed before I move forward, you can do wait job, or you can say receive job dash wait, which will be a blocking call.
And there's
Nice.
also some cool add-ons, some cool extensions you can use, like in PowerShell Cookbook, for example, where you can get like notifications about jobs completing.
Right.
So there's lots of cool stuff around the job infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for the experiments. Like Mark said, we're going to keep on pounding this point. Send dash feedback. So try this out. Install the module. Try it out. I will also paste a link. We have an entire article around why we're doing experiments, what they're for, how to try them out. So I will also put that in the description of the YouTube video. So check it out and let us know what you think. Send us feedback. And I will now kick it over to He-Man. He'll show us some Cloud Shell.
Sure. Okay. Let me know when you guys see the stuff.
Got it.
Yeah, so you just go to your portal, Azure, portal.azure.com, and on the top you have this icon, lovely icon for saying Cloud Shell. You can kick it open. I already started it, so you don't see that 1 minute delay that we have. For PowerShell, it takes about a minute-ish. We are working on that part. And apart from PowerShell, you have the notion of bash. So you can decide which shell you want. Once you pick a shell, the next time you kick in, it will remember your last shell and it'll open that by default, but you can always change. And once you're in the shell, and obviously another thing, which is you can change the font size. So you have small, medium, large. Once you select a font size, that is saved as well. So next time you don't have to go. So once you land here, you can run normal command list. So for example, you can say get module dash list available Azure RM start. So show me all the modules which are related to Azure RM, and it's going to run and tell you all 50 plus modules that you have. So Azure RM modules are built in. It's taking too long. Azure RM modules are built in, and we are trying our best to keep up with the new releases. So the idea is within a week-ish time frame, once a new version gets released, it is available to you in the Cloud Shell. There's a slight delay because it gets released. We pick the same stuff. There's no secret handshake happening in the background. Whatever gets released to the users is get. So that's one thing. So you have you can run normal command lists. The other thing that you will notice is once you start, you are in a drive called Azure. And essentially, this is your navigation to all Azure resources. So when you say dir, it's listing all your subscriptions. You can go to a specific subscription, tab completion works here, and you do a dir. Again, it'll inside that subscription, it'll give you a couple of views. It gives you all resource views, or you can go through resource groups one by one, and then we bubble up the storage accounts, virtual machines, and web apps as high-level concepts. And under the cover, this is using same exact Azure RM modules that people have access to. It's just provide a level of abstraction on top of it. And so if I go to resource groups, I have a bunch of resource groups. One thing you'll notice, the first time you do a dir, it is essentially going to the service and getting all the information live.
Yeah.
But the next time you do a dir, it's pretty fast because we have the information cached. You can always change it by saying dir-force because you created something, you don't want to use the cache information, and this forces
nice.
it to go and get the latest information. And obviously it'll build the path, it'll say check everything under automation team and then under resource groups and then list that data.
Cool.
So one more thing, which is if I go in a specific resource group, so I'm here inside that resource group, it tells me all the things, automation, compute, storage, network, and I can run get Azure RM VM. At this point, since you are in a specific resource group, we magically add that resource group to that commandlet call under the covers. So when you run it, you'll say, oh, these are the 3 VMs I have in that resource group. But when I go out and try to run the same command again, you will see you have a bigger set of things. So context-aware results.
Cool.
Apart from that, you have tools like Git. You can say Git version.
Nice.
And you have Git. And you have the cloud drive. So if you go to your home drive, here there is a folder called cloud drive. This is your persistent storage that will be saved across sessions. So whatever files you save here will be available next time you open the Cloud Shell. And since we are talking about the, we just say there is a file cloud. We have editors also. So there's a file called ps1 cloudshell.ps1. If you open in Vim, you will see there is color highlighting. So write verbose and messages, they are in different colors. And if I go,
nice.
And in the bottom, you'll see there was a language server. So there is some magic happening under the covers. And the benefit of this is you say Azure RM VM is tab completion IntelliSense. So you get the VM and then you can say, what are the parameters? So resource group, or you can tap through. And if something has validate set, like error action, it will show you the values. So again,
awesome.
you can see those things. So that's one part. And the other thing is, this is available in Azure app. Not just that, when you are going to the documentation, and specifically the new AZVM that Aaron just showed you, you can go to the documentation of that. And here you have the option to say, try it. Same Cloud Shell that you have, you might have to authenticate again, connects you back there, and you can just say copy and then go here and say paste and learn the concepts, play with them as you are reading to the docs.
Awesome.
Nice.
So, He-Man, a few questions.
Oh no.
Where?
Few questions. No. Okay, no, that's fine.
These are, I'm like Hanselman on Azure Friday. They're leading questions. I think I know most of the answers. So you went to a cloud drive folder that you said is persisted. How is that persisted?
So that's a good point. So they are essentially users Azure storage. So when you start the Cloud Shell for the first time, there's a pop-up. It says which subscription you want us to create the storage. If you already have that storage, if you ask, the default is we create a new resource group and a new storage inside it and do Azure files. But you have an option in advance to say, I already know my subscription, my resource group, and I already have a storage account that should be used. So you have both the options there. And then you can browse it through either the Azure RM command list or through the portal and see your files. And that is the same storage that is used across your bash session and PowerShell session. So you can have mixed files that works in both environment or independent.
Okay, if there's like a package that I basically rely on in the PS gallery, like I've always used it, it's a certain way of maybe running jobs or certain querying tools and things like that. How am I supposed to get my work done if I don't have those tools in the Cloud Shell?
So that's a great point. So in the Cloud Shell, you have the PowerShell package manager. So you can do a install module, find module. So for example, I can just do find module if I can type correctly. And then you can say Azure AD, and it will tell you, hey, by default, we go and connect to the gallery. First time when you try to install it, prompt you, do you trust this gallery to install?
Yeah.
And once you install it, it gets stored in your cloud drive. So essentially,
Awesome.
you download that module once, but then it's available. And if you don't like, you can go to cloud drive and remove it. Another benefit of Azure file shares is you can actually mount it on your Unix box or Windows box and treat them as if they are local. So you can play with the files locally as well as the Cloud Shell.
Awesome. Last question. Which Cloud Shell is better, PowerShell or Bash?
Cloud Shell is better. It depends what you want to do. Both of them are equally good. But since Aaron is asking, I will say the one which has Azure PowerShell commandlets.
I agree. Awesome. He-Man, you actually showed me a few things that I didn't know existed, which is pretty cool. I was unaware of that Vim integration that you guys built in. So that's awesome. That's exciting.
We showed that at Ignite, and people did ask question about will we have this PowerShell Azure drive available on Windows. So that's the work we are doing. We'll put it on PowerShell Gallery. You can just install Azure PS Drive module, and it'll bring all the dependencies, and we'll put it on GitHub as well. And same thing with the Vim PowerShell integration. Cool. Sorry, I cut you, Mark. You were asking.
No, I was just going to ask you: is there a user profile in the cloud drive? So like commands that I would run, or aliases and things that I would set
yes,
up?
good point. Yes, so in the cloud drive, you can create your profile. We have support for both the profile.ps1 file, which is across all your hosts, and then there is a specific one which is Microsoft _ PowerShell.ps1. So you can have profile files, and we look into those files and load them up.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And all this is in our documentation already, which is aka.ms Cloud Shell. And you can provide the feedback on AK. And one more thing.
I will add a link to that to the description.
If you click the question mark on this iframe, it takes you to your Cloud Shell overview, your PowerShell reference directly from here. And a big thing is about copy paste. There is no easy way to do Control-C, Control-V, so it points to how you can work around that. So those information is already available to you at your tooltips.
But it looks like you Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna sorry. I was just gonna say. So send feedback is available there too, right?
Yes.
Yes. Send feedback is available there as well in the Cloud Shell. Yes.
And but you capture right click, so you can copy paste with right click, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's paste and copy both options.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. Thanks a lot, He-Man. Do you have anything else to add? And you're welcome to stick around or peace out. It's up to you.
I have another meeting. I'm late by 5 minutes. So.
Oh gosh. All right. Have fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me there.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, so that's kind of that was a lot of good stuff, guys. I feel proud.
You should.
Feel warmness in my heart. Like I said, we'll add all of this information to the description of the YouTube, so check out the description as you're watching. We will now move on to some of the future work that we're doing. And I will kick it off with Maddie is going to talk about a location completer. What is a location completer, Maddie?
So basically, it's a new feature already available in PowerShell, but now when any commandlet that has a location parameter, you can now autocomplete tab completion with the valid locations that are available to that commandlet based on the provider that it uses.
So if you have a command that's creating like VMs and storage accounts and virtual networks and all that, it's only going to show you the locations that you can actually create those things in that subscription.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So I noticed you said it will use the provider. What do you actually mean there? Like, what does that mean?
So the user actually doesn't have to input anything. It's the developer that puts in which provider and resource type the commandlet uses. So the user just sees.
So you're saying if I'm on the storage team or the VM team, I would code in a way for us, all of Azure PowerShell to be able to grab which locations are actually valid.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. So then as a developer, as like a customer, all I have to do is start hitting tab and I'll know that under the hood, all of the right location types are being completed properly.
Exactly. So you know that by tabbing through, you're never going to accidentally use a location that isn't valid.
That's awesome. Mark, I think I interrupted you. Were you going to add something?
No, I think I kind of pre-answered your question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, you did kind of pre-answer it. I was just kind of poking and prodding a little. And so, Maddie, when do we think that might be available to customers?
So hopefully in the next release that'll be available. I'm not entirely sure which commandlets that'll be applied to,
Okay.
but hopefully a lot.
Yeah, the idea is that we will apply this first to the commandlets that are used the most.
Got it.
So there's some logistics to work out, but I mean that's eventually will be everywhere. We will start with the things that are used the most.
How might we know which ones are used the most?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Also, send feedback. You could do it right now. You could get on the PowerShell and send feedback right now.
I don't see location completer on this commandlet. That would be a great thing to send on send feedback.
That really is. Like, hey, I saw location completer or I heard about it and I'd really love it on this commandlet, X or Y. Awesome. Anything else to add there, Maddie, on the location completer?
Don't think so. It's pretty straightforward for the user experience.
Cool. Now, was there anything else? It makes sense with location. It's very easy to query what locations are available for each provider. Do we have any plans to add this type of tab completion functionality on any other parameters?
So we're actually also adding it onto resource group name parameters because that's also very easy to query and find all the valid resource groups for a specific commandlet.
Cool. So it's same kind of deal where when you hit tab for the first time, it'll kind of go out and find out which resource groups you could put I guess you could put anything in any resource group. So it'll just grab all your resource group names and then you can tab through them.
Exactly.
Very cool. That is exciting.
That's an awesome segue into the next thing that Maddie was going to talk about.
Yes, it is.
Look at that.
I mean, that's what I was doing. I did that on purpose.
Okay.
So is there anything else that we want to talk about the resource group completer?
So not about the completer, but we're also adding a default resource group. So we're adding some new commandlets, get Azure RM default, set Azure RM default, and clear Azure RM default, which will currently allow you to set a default resource group, which will then, on certain modules, it will, if you set that default, it will automatically put it in for any mandatory resource group name. So if you're running new Azure RM VM and you don't specify a resource group name, but you've set the default, it'll automatically use that default.
Got it. That's awesome. So maybe I get to work and I know that everything I'm doing today is for a specific client. So I log into that subscription and I set a default resource group for that client. And then all I do all day, I don't have to pass resource group. I can just type new Azure RM VM, supply all of the other required parameters, but resource group name would automatically be filled out by that default.
Exactly.
Now, would that work in a script? Like, could I set the default at the top of the script and then do an entire script that way?
Yeah, that would work too.
Very cool. Anything else to add there?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Awesome. I agree. All right, Mark, what's up? You're next. I see that you're talking about this thing called AsJob, but I don't know what that is.
I think you already stole my thunder here. But,
I've never heard of that.
You noticed in Aaron's demo about the compute experiments that he was using AsJob, as it turned out unsuccessfully because he hadn't logged in. But basically the idea is that we have lots of commandlets like creating VMs, creating storage accounts, removing resource groups, deploying templates that take a really long period of time. And so what we want to do is provide a mechanism so that it's really easy to create, to basically have these things happen in the background while you go about the rest of your tasks in PowerShell, and then you check back on them when you actually need them to be complete. So to do that, we're implementing that as job as a general mechanism. We're going to start pushing it into, again, the core commandlets, the most used commandlets, and eventually out to all commandlets that have a long-running operation. The operation doesn't complete pretty much immediately.
How are we deciding which commandlets get as job first?
So this is based on the information we have about usage, which I think we'll be talking about in a little bit, and also just based on feedback. So when people do send feedback, like using the send feedback commandlet, we actually listen to that and use that to make decisions. So that would be another great thing to send feedback about.
What do you know? All right, and then I think kind of going along with that as job, it's kind of like one of those things where we're going to target where to make these improvements. What other types of improvements do we plan on making in a similar vein?
So we have a big initiative underway right now to sort of increase the simplicity and conformance of all the Azure PowerShell commandlets. So right now, we've been working with T-Man's team to come up with a set of standards and apply them to all new commandlets as they come in. But then what we're going to do is go back to existing commandlets and sort of bake in some more simplicity and conformance. So conformance meaning conformance to PowerShell standards and conformance to having standard parameter type names. Standard parameter names for the same concepts across everywhere. It also, and then simplification is largely about places where we have complex input types, making those simple input types so that it's much easier to use a single command to create something rather than having to chain together several commands in order to do one creation or one modification. Similar,
that's exactly what we're doing with the compute commandlet, like Sergey and I talked about earlier. And that's kind of why we want more feedback, is because we're going to take some of those learnings and apply them to more and more commandlets as we move forward. So it's not just about conformance, it's also about making these complex creation scenarios not so complex.
Yes, I think we're calling it simplificaformance, but
yeah, okay, I can never say it, so I'm not even going to try. But Mark knows how to say the new word that he invented on what we are doing, and it's genius. It's going to take the world by a storm. Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for that description. Okay, Scott, it's your time to shine.
It's my time to shine. So as far as we know, Aaron does not practice these leading questions and segues. It just comes naturally. But we don't know what kind of conversations he was having with his dog before we logged in. It's a gift, man. He's really good at it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've talked about telemetry. Yes, we use telemetry to figure out what types of the biggest usage commandlets. We know these and parameter sets and some other things. But the biggest thing that we've noticed recently is there's been a big spike in download numbers from the gallery. Starting from June, July, we went from 200K to 580K downloads of some module. This is all based on the profile module, which gets installed once on the first thing you install, whether that's just the storage or Azure RM, for example. But so in the last 3 months, we went 200,000, 580 to 1.2 million in August.
That's awesome.
The September release is already up to 725K. So we're on pace to eclipse the 1.2 million, except we're going to release today, which will kind of wipe that out, but we still see the trend. And it also looks like this is mostly new users. So the raw usage numbers of endpoints that are hit is only going up at about 10%, but that kind of falls into play with the new users aren't going to be firing off as many commands as scripts and CIs and automation and things like that. So we'll keep track of this. Obviously, we will use it to determine what we're going to do and where we're going to add these defaults to. And then most importantly, the way to have us add something functionality you need besides raw telemetry is, yes, feedback.
Yes.
Right on.
All right. Scott ended it on the high note of awesome telemetry and to always send feedback. The last comment, I was going to ask the rest of you if you had anything to add. One thing I forgot to talk about was the Docker support. Our entire team has a Docker repository called Azure SDK, all lowercase, no spaces, no dashes, or anything like that. We have both Windows images, Linux images, and experiments images. So if you want to try out the experiments and not install them on your machine, you can Docker run the Azure PowerShell experiments image, and you will get all of Azure PowerShell and the experiments all in one. It's kind of nice, and I will keep that updated. It has currently the latest version of both Azure RM and Azure RM.compute.experiments in the gallery. So check that out if you want to try these things out, but don't necessarily want to install extra things on your machine. Did anyone else have anything to add that we may have accidentally skipped over, anything like that? Hearing none. Adjourned. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks.